Demons can sometimes use objects as conduits to achieve their desired goal.
Their desired goal?
Our souls, John.
It wants her soul.
No. Demons can't just take souls, Mia. The soul needs to be offered to the demon before it can take it.
Welcome to Now Playing's The Conjuring retrospective series.
It scares us just thinking about it. When you hear it, you're gonna think we're insane.
Hosted by Marjorie.
I'm gonna get you now. I can hear you breathing.
Arnie.
Arnie. It's got Arnie.
And Stuart.
God brought us together for a reason. This is it.
This review will contain detailed plot spoilers and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised.
So what do we do?
You should go be with Arnie. He's gonna need you tonight more than ever.
Today we're discussing The Conjuring, Last Rites, Promises. Starring Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, Mia Tomlinson, Ben Hardy, directed by Michael Chavez. This is Arnie, co-host of Now Playing, and I'm back because this franchise wasn't done with you, and it wasn't done with us.
And Stuart.
And Marjorie.
All right, yes, we're back at one of our most unpopular shows. Here's the thing, I just want to set expectations correctly. I didn't hate The Conjuring. I've hated none of these movies. Maybe that second one was kind of dumb. But for the most part, I thought they were pretty meh. But the problem is everyone else seems to love them. So we're out of step with the popular sentiment, but we're not haters. At least I didn't get that when I rewatched the trilogy and listened to the old shows.
I don't hate it. In fact, I actually really love how they portray Ed and Lorraine because it's not like they're actual people. But I think that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga have like incredible chemistry for being these very kind-hearted, spiritual people. They do a really good job with the costuming for her for the period, and I really enjoy that. I don't hate these movies, but I don't love them.
Yeah, Marjorie's the only one who's given a core Conjuring film a recommend with part 3, my least favorite. I did revisit the trilogy, and it's funny to me because I think I've seen The Conjuring part 1 more than movies I actually like. I think I've seen it more than Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and The Nice Guys, which are a couple of my favorite films ever, but every time we return to this Conjuring universe, I'm like, well, I better watch the old ones again. I didn't watch all the Annabelles and the Nuns and all of that, but I did go back and watch the Conjuring core trilogy. I kind of remember the Warrens' role or lack thereof and the various cameos they had on the spin-off films. So I was prepared for this, and I'll agree with Marjorie. I mean, re-listening to those old shows, re-watching the movies, weak, not recommend. You know, right on the borderline. I just wasn't into the films, but I don't hate these films. You know, when people come to our website and just see the red arrows and don't listen to the nuance around those red arrows, they may think we're haters. We're not haters. I think we're all just not into this. And I don't know if it's maybe just becoming passé now. It has been 12 years since the first Conjuring, but we are here at what is purported to be the wrap-up of the entire Conjuring series. Like, no more Annabelles, no more nuns. Did we get a Crooked Man film? I can't even remember anymore.
We did not. They had it. They were ready to go. I think, like a lot of aspiring Marvel universes, they had all kinds of ideas, you know, about what they were going to do. But realistically, the market would only support so much. No, we had 3 Annabelle movies, 2 nun movies, a La Llorona, if you even want to count that.
They don't anymore. They are saying that's not part of the universe, despite having a character directly from the universe.
Yeah, fuck them. I paid full ticket price to see that. It counts. I think the spin-offs are where the hate comes from. The core Conjuring movies, again, I think you're right. I like these actors. I think what has always been the rub is I like these actors, and it burns me that they've made such a kindly presentation of people that I find morally despicable, right? The lie of this, the fact that these are supposed to be true stories, and yet obviously they're Hollywood bullshit, and that these are con artists that have exploited people in real pain and need and are presented as good Christian, wholesome, all-American family. I think that's part of when I listen to the old shows, even though I tried to say I'm focusing on this as a work of fiction, that's the rub. It's just hard for me to shake.
I think it would have been a really interesting and different series if they did the charlatan aspect of the Warrens and how they were scamming people. I think that would actually make a really great movie with I love true crime stuff, but I think that you would have the opportunity to really explore some of that and expose some of this, because this is, I hate to use the word industry, but the kind of thing that does have a lot of charlatans.
Well, here's the thing. They're dead now, right? They were consultants, or at least Lorraine was, on the first couple. But now that they're completely gone, maybe this is going to get rebooted. Maybe that's why we stop here with this, and it'll come back in some other form that's closer to real life.
Well, I will say that in researching this film, I learned that not only was Lorraine a consultant on those first films, but Judy and Tony Spira have been consultants since the beginning as well.
I know where you're going with this, because as I watched this movie, it clicked about halfway. I was like, oh, this is not ending at all. They're just handing off the baton.
They will not give this franchise to two such uncharismatic actors who cannot carry it. I mean, this is direct-to-video Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson equivalencies.
We'll get into it, but maybe in a different format. Like, they could be on an HBO Max show, right? They could do this in a smaller way. I agree, it might be done at the movies. I definitely think this is goodbye to Patrick and Vera. And so, in some ways, they're not lying when they say Last Rites is the end of an era. But you're right, this is too profitable for New Line. Why would you stop here? All the movies have been made money. This one included, right? It's opening big?
Yeah, this is having a huge opening. Not what our theater showed. When we went, it was probably 20 people in a theater that could fit 200. But this has been a good year for horror, with the new Final Destination and Sinners and Weapons making good money at the box office. This film is doing better than all of them. They were thinking maybe a $50 million weekend. Warner was kind of coming in under at $35 million. And when all the numbers were counted, this thing made $83 million this weekend on a $55 million budget, and then another $100+ million internationally. So this is the second biggest debut for a horror film, behind only It. So this is easily the biggest Conjuring box office of all. The last one, it had a $200 million worldwide box office, but so little of that came from the United States, because this is when Warner Brothers was putting all of their movies on Max instead of making us go to a theater. So the box office for part 3 is kind of skewed, but this one is going to make its budget back domestic opening weekend. This is going to make Warner some money.
Yeah, that part 3, I've got to say, rewatching the trilogy, it was like watching that for the first time. Yeah, the COVID years. When you stream something and you don't go to the IMAX, there's a difference. I felt that. And that's what I did. I went and saw this preview night in the IMAX. You're right, it wasn't hugely populated, but there were fans there, and all ages. There were families that brought kids and people that I don't associate liking horror movies. I was talking at my job, and I was very surprised to find out some people were like, yeah, I really want to go see that. They wouldn't go see Sinners or Weapons, but this Conjuring universe, it calls to them. And I wonder, we've talked about this before, is this a horror movie for Christians? Is this a film that the faithful can stand behind and not feel like it's, one of those bad horror movies?
I feel that this has a wider appeal because it is low on the gore, and it's more like the Paranormal Activity movies where you're not getting the gore, you're just getting kind of like jump scares, and maybe someone looks gross or looks kind of disfigured, and that's the scare, and it has a wider appeal because of that. I mean, if you look at some of the previous movies you've had in this century where people have been terrified of the gore, or like the thing is to say, 3 people left and vomited and they had to leave and all this stuff, or they're handing out vomit bags at the screenings. So this is something more safe. And I think we did have some kids in ours, Arnie, some families in our showing of it too.
Yeah, for an R-rated movie, I would call this a horror movie for people who don't like horror movies, because there is so much family drama, especially in this one. It's under the guise of a horror movie, but it's, again, our rating for Fear is a joke to me. It's marketing to me.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, how they were surprised as anyone that the MPA shit their pants and said, absolutely not, it has to be R, because it definitely does play to preteen, your first horror movie. Yeah, people that don't necessarily go for splatter movies, they can be cool with this one. But I wondered, because I picked up the nonfiction book this is based on, The Haunted, One Family's Nightmare, written by the Smurls, this one I thought it was going to be pushing that envelope. If you read the actual documented account, most of what happens to this family is sexual violence. And I was really thinking, God, I mean, watching the previews for this movie, I couldn't tell what the ghosts were, what was going to happen. I was like, are they really going to go there? Are we going to have the eldest daughter raped, the husband raped, the wife raped, the way that it is documented in this book?
Whoa. We need to back up here for a second. I did not read the book, and I only found out about the TV movie like that night. I'm not up on ghost culture. However, I was not aware that ghosts are committing sexual violence against people.
Oh, Dan Aykroyd could tell you about that. I don't think that was a consensual blowjob.
He didn't say no. I mean, come on. What was he wearing? He was alone at night? Come on.
He wasn't alone. There were other Ghostbusters in that room.
The language is succubus if it's a female presenting ghost that rapes men, or incubus if it is a male presenting ghost that rapes women. And both show up to the Smurls in this household. It's kind of the shock of the material. I mean, most of it's kind of like your usual knocking on walls and screaming and the dog barking and that kind of stuff. But once it gets going, yeah, this is a family that really is experiencing something quite traumatic, and the Warrens barely show up in it. It should be said that they reach out and offer some advice. It feels like they made a phone call or two, but they weren't there for any of it. So all of this stuff, obviously, about a mirror and how their destiny and careers are tied up with this family, is the contrivance of this movie and these screenwriters.
Yeah, I sat through the credits because there is an end credit scene, and I noticed that at the end, where the credits always say this is a work of fiction, any similarity to people living or dead is entirely coincidental, this one said this is based on a true story. Some timelines have been compressed for dramatic effect, but...
Yes, this family put up with this sexual abuse from ghosts for 15 years, though. It was a very long haunting.
Yeah, which is, I think, why it stands out as one of the most famous, I guess. You know, it's not quite Amityville because, again, what makes a haunting famous? A hit movie, right? This is done before it was done on TV. We didn't watch that TV movie. I'm sure it's a TV movie, right?
It is. It's a made-for-TV movie, and I'm going to have Arnie track it down because I'm going to watch it, and I'll post in the group about it.
Okay, well, I look forward to that, but it's a movie like this that can really make that true story resonate with a larger audience. I've never heard of Smurls before. I kept writing Smurfs, actually, in the beginning of this, but it is the Smurl family.
I was thinking the same thing. Was it really the Smurls in the clip with Larry King in this movie? I didn't think it looked like the actor playing the Smurl parents in that brief Larry King shot in the movie. I couldn't tell if they CGI'd the actors with Larry King or if that was actual Smurl footage.
It was actual Smurl footage. They were featured on Larry King Live.
Yeah, that's another thing about this case was that it got a whole lot of press. The decision to invite cameras in at a time when in the 80s, there was home cameras, right? In the 70s, people didn't have that stuff. But in the 80s, you could pull out a camcorder and get it on VHS. And we'll see some of that here in this movie.
My father's Super 8 begs to differ.
Well, yes. I mean, yes, there obviously was home filming formats in the 70s, but not the same thing. I think that footage, along with the fact that we had 24-hour news cycles and Larry King and talk shows.
And coming into this movie, I also had a little bit of excitement around the Warrens. I have actually scheduled a tour of the Warrens collection that's happening in about 4 weeks. It is a traveling tour. It is no longer owned by Judy and Tony. They kept it up after the Warrens died, but they had to shut it down because they were doing the tour in a house in a residential neighborhood, and they were shut down for zoning reasons. And stand-up comedian Matt Rife, if you know him, I liked him for like a minute when he was heavily on TikTok, and then I really got tired of him. But he bought the Warrens collection and their house and everything, and it is currently on a mobile tour where a lot of the artifacts, including the Annabelle doll, are going town to town, and it's going to Lexington, Kentucky, of all places, for Scarefest weekend in October. So I'm going to that con, and I have a 90-minute guided tour through the collection scheduled. I want to see that Raggedy Ann.
I guess my question for you, Arnie, is why? I mean, what, you're just sucked up into the celebrity of it? You don't believe this, right? I mean, you're not a fan.
No, I just want to see the origin of the legend. I don't like the Warrens as people from what I know of them. I do believe them to be scam artists, but there's no doubt that even before the movies, Annabelle was notable in those kinds of circles. And so kind of like when I went to the Winchester house, I just kind of want to see the spectacle.
Okay. I mean, I get it. You talk about something long enough, even if it's BS, and this is mostly BS. Yeah, it does draw a crowd. I think we'll see that represented in this movie.
It helps that I was already going. I'm not going for the tour. It's just literally going to be in the building I was going to be already. So I decided to buy a ticket.
Are you going to buy the popcorn bucket? I see that Annabelle is, of course, the thing they're using.
Where you eat the popcorn out of her butt?
She's holding something.
No, there are two different popcorn buckets. There's one with Annabelle holding like a pail, and the pail says The Conjuring on it. But if you go to Cinemark, there's one where you put the popcorn in Annabelle's butt.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a badunkadunk, and you eat the popcorn out of her ass.
I would expect that from Megan. I don't expect that from Annabelle. That's unseemly behavior for such an antique doll.
There's only so many places that you could put it. I mean, I guess you could do a head doll, but they did that for Megan. And I feel that everybody's trying to top everybody now with these popcorn buckets.
It's telling they're not using any of the new demons to market this.
Well, the new demons don't have any names. Remember, it was so important that we know Valak's name in part 2. I don't know the name of the demon in this one. We're just going to call it the demon. But I think everybody's trying to outdo Dune when it comes to just filthy buckets anymore. So, yes, eating out of Annabelle's ass is similar to fucking a Dune popcorn bucket, I suppose.
Even that was a little bit exaggerated, but okay, yes. It's strange that AMC is going to be marketing sex toys by Christmas.
Anything to keep theater attendance up and to make profit for the theater instead of the studios.
I get it.
Buy your Nicole Kidman baby doll dildo only at AMC. We come to this place for magic.
Yes, indeed. Well, I came here for the plot review and to get into it. So, Arnie, get us started.
In 1964, Ed and Lorraine Warren encountered their first demon. It was living inside a cursed full-length standing mirror at an antique shop. When Lorraine touches the mirror, the demon infects Lorraine's unborn baby. She has a premature birth, and her daughter, Judy, is stillborn. But while holding the dead infant, Lorraine prays to God to bring Judy back, and Judy does come back to life. We then jump to 1986 and all that soundtrack entails, and the mirror ends up being bought by the Smurl family in Pennsylvania. The Smurls are 3 generations living together, and grandparents Mary and John bought the mirror as a gift for granddaughter Heather's confirmation. Also in the family are parents Jack and Janet, played by Rebecca Calder and Elliot Cohen, Heather's older sister Dawn, and Helen's younger twin sisters Karen and Shannon. Not that any of those names matter any more than in the first Conjuring film. I will just be referring to them by their ages. Once the mirror enters the Smurl house, strange things start to happen, including a light fixture falling from the ceiling and sending Heather to the hospital. Heather and Dawn throw the mirror in the garbage, but even trash collectors can't get rid of the demon, who does everything from pulling corded telephones into empty pantries to making Dawn vomit shards of broken mirror glass. No rape in this one. There's also a vision of a guy in bib overalls trying to kill people with an axe, and Jack Smurl ends up floating above his bed for a while. The family of 8 can't afford to go to a hotel, So they just live with the demon, even when Grandma gets pushed down a flight of stairs and sent to the hospital. They appeal to the church for help, but are mostly ignored until Father Gordon, a friend of the Warrens, goes to investigate for himself. He sees evidence of demonic possession and goes to see the bishop, but the demon confronts him and makes Gordon commit suicide. During all of this, we've also spent much more time following Ed and Lorraine Warren, again played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. They're now retired due to Ed's heart problems, and they're giving lectures to mostly empty auditoriums, and those who do come are disappointed that the Warrens' experiences aren't like those seen in Ghostbusters. Their now adult daughter, Judy, played by Mia Tomlinson, has inherited Lorraine's psychic powers, but she's not psychic enough to anticipate her boyfriend Tony Spira, played by Ben Hardy, is going to propose. As she prepares for her wedding, Judy has more and more visions of a dark spirit. At Father Gordon's funeral, Judy feels a presence, and she follows that presence to Pennsylvania and the Smurls. To protect their daughter, Ed and Lorraine take Tony to Pennsylvania and try to get her to come home, but Judy convinces her parents to stay and help the Smurls. Judy's psychic powers lead her to the Smurls' attic, where she finds the mirror hiding, even though we saw it crushed in a garbage truck. It's mostly fine now, but the demon has been waiting 22 years for Janet. It possesses the girl and tries to get her to kill herself. Ed and Tony save Judy from death, but Ed has heart issues while giving CPR. The demon in the mirror attacks using the mirror itself, which on its own spins like a whirlwind, then spins like a top, and in the reflection are evil versions of Ed, Lorraine, and Judy. But good Ed, Lorraine, and Judy push back on the mirror, and the mirror shatters, driving the demon out. The Warrens take the cursed mirror to their museum, and then we end with the wedding of Judy and Tony. Lorraine has a vision of their family's future, filled with grandchildren and happiness in retirement, as well as writing some really shitty books, as credits roll.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I read some of those shitty books.
I read part of that self-published Conjuring one. It wasn't written by the Warrens, but it was a shitty book.
Right, but as your plot summary and the ad campaign really lets us know, this is about coming full circle. Last Rites, this is the end. So we start at the beginning. The very first case for Ed and Lorraine is unsuccessful. Did they help this woman who said her father hung himself in an antique shop because he heard scary voices?
No, they say later on they ran away from this. They never went back. They never helped this lady. I was getting a strong Friday the 13th, the series vibe from this opening because they're in an antique shop with cursed goods and encountering this evil mirror. And that was just a great storytelling engine for a TV show, wasn't it? That every week there's a new cursed antique that's doing something, from a curio to wood chipper. So here, this is really reminding me of that show.
You remember that show more fondly than I do. I don't remember it being very good and not ever having a hockey mask. But they've always had that, right? This has been the point of the whole Warrens, is that they have a museum. They don't get rid of their cursed things. So it's kind of weird they didn't collect the mirror back then. You're telling me in lines of dialogue they say we were just too frightened because what's going to happen to Lorraine in this moment.
Yeah, they never went back to that antique shop. They noped right out of that.
All right. Well, we still don't exactly know why they're doing this. Like, you would think when you start at the beginning, you would find out their interest in the paranormal. And I know that she has powers, right? She's always heard voices. But why they turned it into this detective agency, I like your idea, Marjorie. They should have incorporated more of the con artist elements here. It would help.
I think that would make a really great story. I think it would kind of be fun, and I wish somebody would do it, or I don't know, maybe it's an idea in the future for not New Line to do.
It would be such a more morally complex film, wouldn't it? Even if you had them start as con artists who ended up becoming the real thing, Three Amigos style or Galaxy Quest style, they start off faking it and then have to actually do it. But here, we're dealing with very simple concepts of good and evil that can sell to anybody instead of trying to go for character studies. But yes, the Warrens have to be public domain, being public figures. It doesn't have to be a Conjuring movie to explore the Warrens in a different way.
And indeed, we do have movies where the Warrens are in it, haunting in Connecticut, for example. And yeah, it's not this. It's baked in the cake, right? They're not going to change now. These have been wholesome Christian couple for 3 films, plus their cameos in the spin-offs. And so they just don't want to do anything here to soil that reputation. We will see that Lorraine goes into this antique store, briefly sees the hung owner. He hung himself in a noose. I guess that's a signature of what the demon makes you do. And then she goes into labor, touching the glass and having the mirror crack.
And I don't know the Warrens' story in detail as far as like when they got married, how many kids they had, and I don't trust this movie to stay true to anything. I take this as a work of fiction, disclaimer that it's true at the end notwithstanding. And so I thought maybe she had a miscarriage because of this. You know, I did not feel for sure that the pregnancy she had when she's being rushed to the hospital would end up being that child we saw in future movies. My mother had several miscarriages before she had me, so it doesn't mean if you have a miscarriage, you can't have a kid later.
Yeah, I suppose, but I knew as soon as I saw the baby bump, oh, there's Judy. This is the origin of Judy.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to go down the dark road of a miscarriage for Lorraine. I thought it was Judy as well. My timelines kind of got messed up here, and my fault for not going back and checking time periods and stuff, but for some reason I thought it was much later in years than it was.
No, it's about 7 years before the first Conjuring. It's also the time when men couldn't go into the delivery room. I like that little detail when they get to the hospital. Ed has to hang back and she's in this room all alone, the power going off and lights flickering and something with glowing eyes crawling on the ceiling coming towards her. This was kind of eerie, I gotta say. This kind of works.
So my question is these people do what they do. We're going to pretend that they're not charlatans. They still decided to bring a child into this world when they have all these dark forces around them. It's inevitable that this girl is going to be haunted, which we do find out that she does have a spirit, it seems, following her.
The way that it's been portrayed in previous movies is that's what they need to feel connected to God. And then they do all of this to help other families like themselves, right? We are a model of wholesomeness, and then we go help other wholesome families who've been afflicted. But Judy has always been kept out of the occult museum, right? Other than that Annabelle comes home or whatever, the climax of Conjuring, the doll got close to her a couple times, but for the most part, we joked about the fact that she was nowhere in the second movie. Like, they went to London and left her behind, we hope with a babysitter, but we're not even sure. I didn't get the impression that they were parents that put their child in harm's way.
In real life, I read an interview with Judy where she said she was primarily raised by her grandparents because her parents were so busy traveling on their demonology. And in the rare times when Judy was in the house, she never felt comfortable in the house with all the cursed antiques in that occult museum. So she was pretty much a non-presence in the Warrens' life, despite how this movie is going to make it seem like she's the most important thing in their life when the baby is stillborn and Lorraine starts saying, please God, I'm like, oh, well, God's going to bring her back and there's going to be some kind of cost involved with that trade.
Well, that's what I mean. This is a movie for the faithful. I mean, it definitely rewards you if you have good faith, kind of like The Exorcist. If you have faith, although The Exorcist ending is arguable about who wins, but in these movies, you definitely have the sense that if you believe hard enough, if you can say the name of the demon, you vanquish it. Always. God will always be more powerful than evil, and that's true here. That they just have to ask, and the demon seemingly goes away, but truthfully, we'll find out it goes into hiding, waiting for this movie to allow it to have another crack at Judy.
These movies have never been great with establishing the rules of its demons and what demons can and can't do, despite the first movie being all about rules and saying only demons can possess people, ghosts can't, and you've got those 3 stages of demonic activity, the infestation, the oppression, and the possession. All of that is established, but here, I'm going to have questions about this mirror demon. Like, the mirror demon seems to go where the mirror mirror goes, but the mirror didn't go to the hospital. And if this demon can go to the hospital and crawl on the ceiling, which is a cool image, I'm going to say every time we see the demon hand, that is nice and creepy, you know, because it always seems to start with the fingers. You see the hand, and then the rest of the demon sometimes reveals itself. But if the demon can come to the hospital, why can't the demon go to Connecticut?
Yeah. Well, again, I think there's nothing that gets explained here about the 22 years in between, right? Like, it feels very unresolved. What are the rules for this mirror demon?
And again, we're sold that Judy is the most important thing in the Warrens' life in this big montage of primarily Lorraine. Every so often, Ed shows up, but it's a mother-daughter thing going on here as the baby takes her first steps, and we go on the merry-go-round, and all of these very happy scenes. Presumably in between, the Warrens are facing death all the time in their experiments and having Arnie go on trial and Amityville and all that, but it looks like happy family.
Again, that makes sense, right? If you live a really intense, horrible day job, you want to come home to peace and calm, which explains why. In this montage, we have the transition from the young actors into Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, and we have Lorraine basically teaching this child that she doesn't have to follow in mom's path. I know you have my gifts, but learn how to shut it out. And I don't know exactly why singing Lucy Locket will do that for you, but, you know, they always got to work in a little nursery rhyme or sing-song jam into these things. The point is, whenever you sing it, it keeps the spirits and demons at bay.
You think that they would just do something permanent so she didn't have to sing this Lucy Locket song? And, I mean, they're supposed to be eradicating demons and spirits and helping other people, but why does their daughter just get Lucy Locket lost her pocket, Kitty Fisher found it?
I take this to be a lot like The Sixth Sense. That's what I was going to with Haley Joel Osment, I See Dead People. You can't stop seeing dead people. The dead people are all around you. You just have to close it out and focus yourself. You can't exorcise every ghost and spirit, especially if they're not harming people. They're just kind of hanging out. You don't want to send them all away. They're not doing anything to anybody.
So interesting to note is that Kitty Fisher and Lucy Locket are suspected prostitutes, ancient prostitutes.
Again, this movie definitely could be more sexually provocative once we find out what's going on in the Smurl household. And that's what we jump to. 1986, a very convincing evocation of the Rust Belt. You know, we talked about this in that Tom Cruise football movie, All the Right Moves. The early 80s were not kind to our iron and steel industry, and we're getting a look at that here in Pittston, Pennsylvania.
So I've actually been to Pennsylvania a number of times for work, and I have actually been to Pittston, and the next time I go, which probably is the next few months, I'm going to go and try to find if I can drive by the Smurl's house and take some pictures for you guys, because this is like really cool to go see stuff like this. So I'm going to go check it out next time I'm there. We got out of the movie, I told Arnie, I said, hey, when I go to Wilkes-Barre, that's exactly how every house in that town looks like. And oh, it was in Pittston right there. I didn't even know it.
What's also fun is that this isn't Pennsylvania where they filmed. I thought this was going to be like a callback to Conjuring 2 when I found out that this is filmed in the UK and a lot of these actors are UK locals. When you film in other countries, they have rules about how many actors you can import versus the local talent you must pull from. And so I thought we were going to have another European vacation, but no, they just made London into Pittsburgh.
Convincingly. I want to give them the compliment. The period details on these country movies have always been on point. I've always felt like they looked correct. And we have that shot of the factory in the background of their home. Like, all of this is very convincing. It feels real. And the fact that we have the cult She Sells Sanctuary going on, I'm into the mood. Again, this is a time period I remember from my own life. Sometimes in these films, they're covering early 70s before I was born. But here, very much, I recognize this household.
So heavy on the prostitute vibe again with the cult She Sells Sanctuary, because what she's selling is, and I feel like this, now that you tell me about The Real Haunting, I feel like at this point this should have been like a super different movie than what we got.
There is a rape scene. We're going to get to it. I'm going to ask you what you guys think you saw, but I see sexual violence in one shot.
Okay, I don't recall seeing that. But the Smurl family, much like the family from the first Conjuring film, is a very big family. We've got 8 people in this household. I wasn't sure if the grandparents lived there during this opening scene or if they were just there for the confirmation of their second daughter. And there's so many daughters, it took me half the movie to figure out if there were 4 or 5 daughters, because there's just girls running all around the place. But there's 2 older daughters and then 2 twins who are much younger.
Yeah, I think they excised one real life daughter just because we definitely don't need more kids here.
It doesn't hurt that everyone looks almost the same. Like, they're all wearing the same glasses. I even got Judy confused a few times. And part of the reason is also, this movie was so dark. Like, the palette, it didn't really help.
I hear what you're saying, like, it's hard to distinguish these characters, but you don't have to. Here's what I'm going to argue. This is just all-American family. Generic, we don't need to know. There's always one kid that kind of gets the spotlight. In this one, it feels like it's Heather. It's her confirmation, and the book really goes into the fact that demons often target families based on puberty, or girls becoming women and what have you. So the fact that the Catholic Church is confirming her on this day is being framed as the reason why they get a present that ends up being that cursed mirror.
And that mirror is suitably creepy with the 3 cherubs on top, and we're going to find out that there are 3 ghosts in this house. And, of course, the Holy Trinity. 3 is a magic number for this kind of story. And so when I see that mirror, yeah, it's kind of creepy and also a kind of a shitty gift. Here's a full-length freestanding mirror that's broken.
I mean, I think that's part of the funniness. You know, grandparents always get you socks or something you don't want, right? So, you know, you can see on Heather's face, she's like that pause of then, oh, I love it. You know, okay, she doesn't like it. But what are you going to do? It's the grandparents.
Well, again, early 80s, economically depressed area, huge extended family living in too small of a house. This is the kind of stuff you get, and it's understandable given the time period.
And the grandparents do have a good excuse. We had a scene before the confirmation where Heather can't get in the bathroom because the sister's taking all the time, and the theory is now at least you don't need to go to the bathroom for a mirror. You know, you have your own mirror, still have to go in there if you need to take a shit, but you can do your makeup in your bedroom.
Yeah, 4 girls trying to get into one bathroom is chaos. And you can feel that. Again, the energy of this house is electric. And after the confirmation, it gets really electric because the light falls. And I guess this is one of the documented things. It had been installed the previous week, so it could just be shoddy carpentry and electricians. But we're going to see this as the very first event, as Heather almost blows out her candle, but then is convinced that her snotty oldest sister, Dawn, did it.
I think this was a great scene, and I wish they would have brought the discovering into it a little bit earlier, or maybe had some other little things happen along that line, because we get the scene later on where she's rewinding the video and going frame by frame by frame, and she sees the demon. I don't think there was enough build up to that.
I agree that we're focusing a lot on the Smurls here in the beginning, but I don't feel like this movie focuses on the Smurls enough. And we go later in the movie just to talk about something that happens later, and Heather's like, we need to leave this house, so much has happened. And I'm like, did so much happen? I mean, they throw away the mirror, and then the oldest daughter vomits blood and has a very Exorcist moment of spewing red all over everybody, and there's shards of mirror glass in it because we saw the mirror break in the back of the garbage truck. But I'm like, what else has happened? I didn't feel like there was enough, and I had to really think back, and I'm like, okay, yeah, dark pantry had a telephone cord pulled into it, and I guess there is this light fixture thing, but it really felt extreme from this, shoddy workmanship on a light. I would not jump to a ghost caused a light to fall on my head to we have to get out of this house and never come back.
To put it more basically, this movie cheats the family more than any of the other Conjuring movies. That first Conjuring movie, we really had time to get to know the Perrons And then the second movie, we definitely spent a lot of time in London, about an hour before the Warrens get there. But because this is the final goodbye to the Warrens, we have almost every scene with the Smurls undercut, cutting away, quickly can't wait to get back to the real stars of the movie. And it's kind of a shame that the Smurl story isn't told, particularly since it has the potential to be the most provocative and shocking. The one scene that maybe didn't stand out for you, Arnie, but should, is the dad responds to that. We're not moving. We can't afford it. There's no reason. I've told the Catholic Church that should be enough. But then he gets attacked. He goes to bed and then all of a sudden freezes. And the way that it's done, I guess you can miss a lot. It's done all in inference. But he floats above his bed and a young ghost, it's not the old lady ghost, a younger woman ghost floats above him. And when you look in the bedroom mirror, she is floating on top of him and starting to writhe. And then they cut away.
I didn't see writhing. I saw her floating above him, obviously. That's pretty clear in frame. I thought this was a Ghostbusters reference, because in Ghostbusters, Dana floats above the bed just like this. I did just see Ghostbusters in theaters in a revival screening, but since we have an opening with the Warrens where people are saying, oh, it's not like Ghostbusters, because it's 1986, that was a huge hit, people would still be very focused on it, and the fact that the daughter screamed at the dad, oh, just because it hasn't happened to you, it doesn't matter. I didn't think sex. I just thought scare.
I don't think you're supposed to. I think that in the end, the filmmakers or the studio says, look, the people that come to this do not want to see ghost fucking, right? They don't want to see this man end up covered in secretions, which is what happened, or at least what he alleges happened.
She slimed me.
Yeah, right, exactly. Can you imagine the jokes of that?
Wait, the ghost was a squirter?
If you really want to know about it, you can read that book.
But the book isn't good, right?
I mean, it is what it is. If you want to know an account of a family that says they had all these things happen to it, let me put it this way. It is a better account of the Smurls story than this movie is, because this movie can't be bothered with the Smurls. There are little bits, little traps, little moments of, the frame by frame on the video, or what's in the dark pantry pulling on the corded phone. But for the most part, they're not characters.
There's one scare, and I'm hoping a listener can help me, because it's one of those little things that's making me go crazy. There's the doll that one of the twins has, Susie, and it goes, Mommy. I have heard that exact mommy clip in a previous movie, and a movie I must have seen a lot if I remember mommy like that, and it's killing me. I can't figure out what movie it is. If one of our listeners knows, I will edit this show and give you a shout out if you can find this original mommy clip for me, because it's absolutely killing me. But then, that doll does turn around and stand up and scare the twin. It's no Annabelle, though.
We have dolls that can crawl in 1986, but to actually, stand up and start moving at you, this is an effective moment. I'm going to argue all the things that happen to the Smurls, they get to me. Like that leering old lady demon, she has that moment where she's holding the doll. Yeah, I think that worked. It worked in the same way that Lipstick Face did in Insidious. I think it's kind of a shame that we have to spend so much time with the Warrens.
Yeah, I agree. I actually liked, but also laughed at the axe murderer, who I just called Hillbilly Marilyn Manson, because he was in bib overalls, but really looked like young Marilyn Manson, not Marilyn Manson now, who looks like my mother, and my mother's dead.
But he is credited. He does have a name. That's Abner, and his woman is Nellie. So these things do have names according to the credits. I never hear a character speak them.
No, but it is an effective scare to have an axe murderer coming after you, even if he does look like he's going to sing Sweet Dreams instead of kill you.
Yeah, that was, again, another moment. They've done it before. They did it with Valak in the second movie. But when the mom's down in the basement and she thinks she sees something, she hits the light and it just turns out to be an oil painting of John Wayne. I think it works. I think all this stuff is in the tradition of what has always worked for Conjuring. I think fans are going to like this.
Nothing's as good as the clap game. Ever since James Wan stopped directing, I feel like the great traps are gone and we're left with okay jump scares.
But I think two things they've done with this movie is to play old-timey songs to signify there's something weird gonna happen. You know, like the old recordings, and they sound funny. And I applaud them for not relying on that to signify the ghost is coming. But I also think we're not getting enough of the Smurls, because I feel that this production team, director, writer, overestimated the audience's affection for the Warrens, and that's why we're getting so much Warren family drama, is you need a good mix of them, and this one just didn't have it. And that's, I think, why we're getting more of the Warrens and Judy, and it is allegedly a send-off for them.
If it weren't, they could cut them down.
And I don't say you overestimate the affection for the Warrens, because in rewatching these films for the umpteenth time, although this is only my second time watching part 3, but rewatching the first couple again, I do like Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. I do like their chemistry. I like that they're a sweet couple. Even though they're not the real Warrens, I like them. And so while I feel it's almost two totally different movies going on here, I do like the time we spend with the Warrens, actually more than the Smurls. The Smurls bring most of the scares, but the Warrens are far more amusing to watch because we're watching actual characters develop and not jump scares to stock characters whose names I don't know.
You're right. The Smurls end up being edited in bits of jump scares because what we're largely getting is the story of Judy. Again, it started with her nearly dying in this delivery room, and that concern remains even now that she's graduated from college. And we see retirement is not being kind to Ed and Lorraine. Ed has been told, you have one more heart attack, and that's it for you. You won't be able to survive this. You can't do your ghost hunting anymore, and you can't eat lasagna. You can't have what your life used to be. And he's really suffering. I like the way they're reintroduced. They're telling the Annabelle story and the lights come on and nobody's in the amphitheater, right? The kids that are watching are there to heckle them.
I would totally go to heckle them.
Well, the real ones for sure. But again, in this conception, we feel bad because these fictional Warrens are so lovable. And yeah, I feel bad that they can't do what they're meant to do.
Honestly, in the 80s, though, which is when the lecture took place, I feel that this would have been the height of a lot of paranormal interest. I believe it was, if I remember correctly, because Poltergeist came out, in 82? And that was a ginormous hit. And Ghostbusters was, 84? So fun paranormal, but I feel like a lot more people took interest in the paranormal, so I feel like their lectures should have been packed.
And I think that if you're talking to the Warrens, you wouldn't reference Ghostbusters. At that point, you'd reference Amityville. You'd reference Poltergeist, which I never realized till our reviews that Ghostbusters was such a parody of Poltergeist in having a lot of the same things. But I think this movie likes to reference Ghostbusters because it doesn't want to reference the movies it's really ripping off.
Or it assumes that this generation hasn't watched them, which might be correct. The fans of this tend to skew a little bit younger.
But the Warrens, I do feel bad for Ed, but I also do like the performance being given by Patrick Wilson here. I really feel for that character. I feel that, he's putting family first, and he's going to have the birthday party. And again, I don't know how much this is going to hew to real life, and I forgot while watching this film how Ed Warren died in real life. I'd looked that up for our previous reviews, but I didn't remember while watching this. So I really, really thought this was going to be their last adventure because Ed was going to die.
Wait, how did he die in real life?
The end titles basically spell it out. He's 79 when he leaves this earth. She's 92.
He had a stroke. It was not during a exorcism or anything fun.
I think they want you to, right? That's all the advertising. Last rites, that's what you give when someone's about to die. All these scenes of Ed at the doctor and all of that really are selling the idea. If he does it one more time, it's the end. Well, we know that the Smurls are going to be that one more time. Ed must die. I actually think that they're not going to kill him because it's being telegraphed so much. But I am curious to know how they're going to resolve what is the meaning of this. Because the titles at the beginning basically said this is the case that ends the Warrens' career and destroys, I think that's the word they use, destroys their family.
Did it though?
No, it doesn't. They lie. Yes. Well, their family changes. And maybe Ed thinks it's being destroyed because Judy is going to get engaged. sorry, but the middle of this movie, suddenly we are radically in Father of the Bride or something. Like, this is a romantic comedy about a guy trying to get in with a mean father-in-law.
And also the reason why I thought Ed was going to die, we have this big birthday party for Ed, and Tony shows up in a tie, and Judy is there and like, is this a funeral? And then Ed sees Tony with the tie and says, is this a funeral? And I'm like, oh, all these people who are coming back from previous films. We see the cop guy who was in the first one and the assistant who was in the first two, and they're there. I'm like, oh, they're all going to come back for the funeral. And Tony's going to have to wear that tie.
This so reminded me of Rick Moranis' party in Ghostbusters, though. And maybe it's because I just saw Ghostbusters where, like, he invited all his clients, like, and it wasn't friends. It was just, like, all the people, his clients. And that's what it reminded me of.
Really? You guys are really Ghostbustering this way more than I do. They do make the joke. Somebody did say, did you ever get slimed in the question Q&A part? But I was not thinking about Ghostbusters, even though it's 1986 and that movie would have been on the minds of so many. It feels like what they're doing is curtain call, right? Here's everyone that's ever been in a Conjuring movie. There's Father Gordon. Hi, Father Gordon. Why are you here, Father Gordon? Oh, because I was in the last two movies. Yeah, and Brad got bit on the cheek in the first movie, so here he is at the grill still talking about it. It's cute, it's funny, but it's mostly just a callback.
And it's all to set up this rivalry between Ed and Tony. Ed's going to give a tour of the Occult Museum to all of his closest friends who I can only assume have been in the Occult Museum at this point many times.
Yes.
But is going to shut Tony out of it. And we're going to get this really strange scene. Like, they make a big deal out of this ping pong tournament. Like it's Forrest Gump or something. It's going to go on and have this music during it.
Let's Dance, David Bowie.
Yep, I thought, again, is Ed going to have a heart attack during this ping pong scene? Why are we watching so much ping pong? But no, it is just, I think it should be bonding between Tony and Ed. But then right after, Tony's going to piss off Ed by asking their blessing, not permission, blessing, which, you know, God blessing, whatever, to marry Judy.
Arnie, you're not getting it. It's right there in front of your face. It's the forest for the trees. I mean, yes, you're seeing the movie for what it is. This is Ed seeing his younger self and eventually saying, okay, you can take my franchise. And at first, I don't want to give up this franchise. It's my franchise. I'm the one that does the cases. But no, these Judy and Tony are clearly being set up as next generation ghost hunters. And he's remarkably cool with it. You know, like this guy catches his fiance in her room. She's had a vision of Annabelle. He's freaking out and doing the whole Lucy Lockett thing. He's like, well, teach me that. And it like ends up being a makeout session. He is very fine with these weird people that have occult items in their museum. And I think what we're supposed to be won over, like Ed is that this guy can carry the show going forward. That's how you're supposed to feel about him by the end.
I do think Ben Hardy could possibly carry a franchise. This is an actor we've seen before. We talked about him in X-Men Apocalypse. He was Archangel. And then he looked very different. But Marjorie, you're a big fan of Bohemian Rhapsody and watched that quite a bit.
Yeah, he was the drummer for Queen in that movie. And I've seen that movie a lot. I've seen X-Men a lot. It didn't even clock that was this guy.
Yeah, but you haven't seen X-Men Apocalypse a lot. Nobody rewatches X-Men Apocalypse. That movie's shit.
No, that's true, yeah. But what I'm saying is I didn't recognize him. He acted totally different.
Fresh face. Both this Judy and him, even though you might have, quote, seen them before, nobody remembers them. They've made no impression. I'm going to start out looking askance to you, kicking your ass in ping pong until it almost gives me a heart attack, saying, no, it's too soon, 6 months dating my daughter, you can't be engaged to her. And by the end of it, after he helps Ed fix his motorbike and tells him a story about having a shotgun put in his face and surviving and quitting being a cop to marry Judy, this is the story of coming to accept a stranger as part of the family.
And this is our third actress playing Judy. We had the same actress doing almost nothing in the first two films. Then we had a different actress doing nothing in the third. Here we have Mia Tomlinson. You say I might have seen her before. I don't know where. She has not done much. I didn't watch The Lost Pirate Kingdom, but she is a British actress, so I think she was a local, and she's fine. I don't feel like she has the presence of even Ben Hardy, let alone Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. I would not watch a show with Mia Tomlinson as the lead psychic.
It might have been the haircut, but she was giving me like really strong Dakota Johnson vibes, and especially with like the lack of acting.
Oh, that's mean. That's mean.
Ouch.
Wait, to compare her to Dakota Johnson?
Yes.
I mean, that's what I kept thinking, because, I mean, she was almost like a non-entity on the screen. I was bored every time this girl was on screen. And maybe, again, it may not be her. It could be the director. It could be a variety of things. Maybe she didn't want to be there. I don't know.
I'm not going to oversell this, but here's what I get off of her. She is fun to watch in a rom-com, but yes, you can't imagine her dealing with dark spirits. And part of that is, Mom keeps telling me, don't mess with the dark spirit. We know that this is her arc, right? It's so obvious. Every time Lorraine comes by and hears her daughter singing that song, she's like, just keep them out. You got the power. You don't have to be like me. Obviously, the end is going to be, all right, I accept you as being like me and having my life, and you're going to take over. We don't have enough of these two fighting the paranormal to feel like they're ready to totally take over a franchise. But we're supposed to see this as that bridge.
Oh my God, it kills me that this movie is so obvious. We see the Smurls. Okay, well, you know what? Warrens are going to help the Smurls, but the Warrens are retired. How's that going to happen? We know it's going to happen. We know that's going to get there. Judy can't lock out the demons. Okay, we know Judy is going to get infested with a demon. This entire movie spends 90 minutes thinking we don't know where it's going to go when we obviously do. If it wasn't for the performances given by Farmiga and Wilson, this would be intolerable.
I'll challenge that a little. I can't believe I'm defending Conjuring movies, but I don't think because it's predictable, it means it's intolerable. Yeah, everyone does know where this is going. That's why they're here, to watch it. What we don't know is how it will resolve. We know everything that's going to happen, but we don't know what it will look like at the end. As you say, Arnie, will Patrick Wilson heroically die trying to save Judy? That's on the table. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it could, right?
No, I don't think so. Because I don't think that they would stray that far from the Warrens' true story.
There's that, and then there's that intertitle that they kicked it off with by saying their family will be destroyed by this case. Destroyed. I mean, come on.
I didn't take it to be destroyed. I took it to be something dramatic.
Well, over-dramatic, as it were.
But maybe I am jaded and cynical when it comes to these things, so...
They have a hard time fitting the fear into the Warren story for the first 90 minutes, is I think the problem. They're trapped in Father of the Bride, and we're wondering why they're not getting to the Smurls. This is the longest time it's ever taken the Warrens to get on the case.
And there's even barely a refusal of the call. Father Gordon at the birthday party is like, we've got some cases, and Ed wants to. I mean, he's not following the doctor's advice, he refuses to eat fish, and it's Lorraine who's pulling him back all the time and saying, no, we have to be conscious of your heart and stay home and not do anything.
Heart health was so 80s too. That was like a huge thing in the 80s.
You know what wasn't a huge thing in the 80s, though? Is Ed's sideburns. He would have shaved those off in the 70s. The fact that they kept Ed looking exactly like he did in the previous movies, we would laugh at those sideburns in 1986.
But there were people like that, Arnie. You're forgetting that, people kept their 70s stash well into the late 80s. It's not like people change with the times. Some people are out of step. Some people are uncool. That's the way I see Ed, is that he's just not fashionable at this point. He's not trendy. He wouldn't care what other people are doing.
Because by the mid-80s, sideburns like that were no longer in fashion. And that kind of spilled over into the early 80s, but by the mid-80s, you were way out of fashion.
He's out of step. Again, this has all the generational comedy of, I'm thinking specifically of that Steve Martin Father of the Bride. That's what I'm getting off of that. But they do work in spook moments. We do have Judy see Annabelle. I wasn't sure she was going to make an appearance in this movie, but I guess if you have her as the popcorn bucket, you got to have her here in a rocking chair for a scene or two.
I actually think Annabelle has eclipsed the Warrens as the fame of the Conjuring universe. And if this truly is the end of the universe, you can't not have Annabelle. The fact that Annabelle is such a small part of this movie is what shocked me.
The Nun doesn't come back. La Llorona, I guess, was never here. But Annabelle has had 3 movies of her own, and you're damn well right. People want to see her. She is the fan favorite, even though I didn't like most of those movies. Judy also has a moment, and it seems like that spirit that tried to kill her in the delivery room has somehow found her. Now that the Smurls have gone public and people are aware of what's happening with them, she's tracked down Judy while she's getting a wedding dress fitting. And we have a cool scene with mirrors where her reflection attacks her and goes underneath her white dress.
Bruce Lee did it better, but I really do like the mirror room with the infinite reflections and everything.
I feel that it was very easy to determine that something was going to happen at this time. However, it was really well done. I felt as a little hammy, the acting at that point, but the mirrors were like a really nice touch, not something you see done a lot in horror. Usually something pops up in the mirror. You don't get all the numerous reflections. I'm going to have to say this is probably one of the better parts of the movie as far as visuals go.
I think it's an effective scene. And again, Conjuring always has them, right? There's always some good scare scenes in all the Conjuring movies. They always succeed to a small extent.
And you want to talk about sexual assault, I was concerned about the demon being under her dress.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I think that there probably was a more racy R-rated version of this movie, and somewhere in the editing, they're like, nah, we want more sentimentality, we want more goofy comedy, this is about the Warrens and love and religion, and Jesus Christ is going to be evoked. We cannot have graphic scenes of sexual assault. That won't play to our fans.
But these Judy scares feel very repetitive. We often don't see what she sees. It's often done with sound effects and then her closing her eyes and saying that rhyme. So I'm definitely checking my watch several times during this movie, as I'd like these 2 disparate stories to finally unify. And that happens when Father Gordon goes to visit the Smurls.
And this was part of the real document. The Warrens were there early. They always are. They're jumping in. Oh, you got a ghost? We'll be the first ones on your doorstep. Before they went public and did all of the press and Larry King and all that, the Warrens were already on the scene. This idea that Judy brings them into the case and they don't know about this is a fabrication for this film. But they were having a lot of trouble getting the Catholic Church to be a part of this. The Smurls kept going to bishops and cardinals and anyone in the church begging. That was why they claimed they were doing the press. Could you please help us? Is there someone out to help us? And the Catholic Church was always, thanks, no thanks. We don't do this anymore, right? They were kind of embarrassed that this was their reputation. They don't want to be known as the exorcists. And so they just wouldn't come, except this one Father McKenna. And that's who it was. He gets name dropped here later. But since we already have a priest in the Conjuring universe, they just decided to give that role to Father Gordon, who I don't have a whole lot of love for. You could kill him off.
Yeah, I barely remembered him, and I just watched these movies. I was like, oh yeah, that guy. You know, I couldn't have told you his name even rewatching them. But he goes and he does the trope, I'm gonna pour water all over your house and read some Bible verses, and the water's going to smoke, and you know that the demon is there.
Am I wrong? But like the wife is like, oh, come on in. Let me show you around the place. Grandma just died, right? Like grandma is going out the door on a stretcher, maybe like not coming back.
No, I think she was moving on that stretcher. She was pushed down the stairs by a spirit, but not dead, just hurt.
Yeah, I didn't think she was dead. I thought that she was just really injured.
But still, my mother-in-law just fell down the stairs and I'm going to have tea with a priest instead.
Well, Stuart, let's be fair. And nothing against Arnie's mom, but you've not had a mother-in-law. So, you know, I can kind of get this. Yeah, you're like, oh, yeah, I get it.
Fair, you're right. It says a lot that she isn't in the ambulance, but showing this priest around. And yes, all his attempts to bless literally go up in smoke. And so he's going to run back to the archdiocese, he thinks, but I guess it's another ghost trap.
Yeah, this is also confusing to me. If the demon can go to the archdiocese and kill Father Gordon, why does it have to wait for the Warrens to show up before it can do anything of note to Judy?
Right. It'd be one thing if he looked into the mirror, but he didn't. You could enter a mirror world and we could explain everything that happens to you as just some delusion while you're made to hang yourself. But yeah, he really does go to his boss, who really does have a secretary, like, give me 1 minute. But then I guess, boom, they're all sucked away. And because someone was using a floor polisher out in the hallway, he thinks the extension cord will be the perfect method to hang himself like that antique store owner from the beginning. And they're trying to tie this all together as the demon will make you end up in a noose.
Yeah, even when Judy was stillborn, she had the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck.
Oh, good point. Yes, exactly. Strangulation is the preferred method, I suppose, of whatever we're calling Old Lady Demon.
So, Father Gordon, everybody just disappears. It's one of the more strikingly, inexplicably supernatural moments in a Conjuring film, that people just disappear. The doorknob to the bishop turns and it has a cross on it. And like many of these Conjuring films, that doorknob's going to turn, so we have the inverted cross.
The moment itself kind of works. I like the fact that Gordon's pulling out his crucifix and it's on fire, and he holds it as long as he can until it's burning his actual flesh of his fingers. Once he drops it, they got him, right? That's the thing. If you're not protected, I just think they needed to work in the mirror reflection better, since that is the primary way the demon seems to mesmerize people. But Gordon never looked in the mirror.
I feel like that scene went on a little bit too long, too, and I checked my watch a number of times during this movie because I felt that a lot of this could have been cut for time, and we could have just gone with the simple Father Gordon was strangled or not even have him in the movie.
Well, he's the reason that Judy is going to go to Pennsylvania. And I liked this scene because it felt the most like a horror movie, you know? It kind of reminded me of The Omen, you know, all for you, Damien, and the hanging and all of that. We're going to actually have somebody die, which was one of my complaints about the first Conjuring, is the ghost only killed a dog. And so here we know that this demon can be fatal in addition to the guy who hung himself at the beginning. I thought maybe he hung himself because he was being driven mad by a ghost, not that a ghost could possess you and make you put a rope around your own neck.
The calculation is if they can kill Father Gordon, maybe they can kill anybody. Maybe they can kill Judy. That's certainly what the parents are worried about. They've been worried about Judy since the day she was born. So when she goes to the funeral, has a psychic vision touching the casket and runs off to the Smurls, they're going to track her down and say, you can't be here. And it ends up being a defiant moment of her reminding mom and dad that people need their powers, that they should be doing this work, and that she's not going to leave a family in need.
Oh, and here is the funeral. I didn't put this together, but Tony will wear a tie to a funeral. It's just not Ed's funeral. I kept waiting for Ed's funeral. He's wearing it to Gordon's funeral.
Yeah, you can kill Gordon. To kill Ed is a whole different level, and you're still thinking that as we're nearing into the climax.
Oh, hell, I'm thinking it at the wedding.
All right, he's still going to drop dead, even while they're like smiling to Van Morrison, slow waltzing.
Yes.
That would be a way to kill a mood, that's for sure.
But yes, they're going to get Tony in the car and take Tony to chase after Judy all the way to Pennsylvania, where Judy was drawn, and in real life, Judy and Tony did pick up the mantle. In real life, Judy claims she has inherited some of her mother's psychic powers and has spoken with her dad beyond the grave.
I believe she's as psychic as her mother was, yes.
So here we're going to see the start of that, as she, if her parents won't help the Smurls, she's going to go and try to help the Smurls.
It's a reason why the parents are going to finally get over the hump, because Lorraine's kind of been a pill throughout this movie. She's doing it for the right reasons, but she keeps saying, no, block it out. We're not going to get involved. Think of your heart. Think of your health. We don't do this anymore. And that's what's felt long. I will say that this movie does have a deliberate pace, as most Conjuring movies do. And while I don't feel as antsy as maybe you guys are describing, I am really ready for them to be at this house at least 20 minutes before they are.
Yeah, it is almost 90 minutes into the movie before the Warrens get to the Smurl house. And we've spent, in all the previous Conjuring films, so much time with the Warrens doing the investigation and fighting the demons and trying different things and being with the family. Here, it's a long movie. There's still 40 minutes left in the runtime when this happens, but we've spent 90 minutes on wedding stuff and a few Smurl scares.
And yet I'm going to argue the last 40 minutes are the worst part of the movie. It's where I kind of check out. But it doesn't feel like having the Warrens there changes a whole lot. What do we even know about these demons? I know that Lorraine goes wandering in the basement and looking at things and starts to predict that there was a couple that lived here and Abner killed Nellie because she was cheating on him or something. But does this track with you guys?
At this point, I had also checked out, to be honest, because I wasn't mentally exhausted. It was just up until this point, it wasn't very interesting. And I feel like this movie is what made me turn on the Warrens, like these characters, even though I like them. And at this point, I was just like, I want this to be over.
I, believe it or not, have enjoyed our time spent with the Warrens in this wedding drama, comedy, rom-com.
I'm not going to disagree with that. Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's just delaying what we came for.
But when we finally get there, I do wish we had more time, because what Lorraine is going to say is there's 3 spirits in this house, and it's that murderer and his 2 victims. And they didn't even live in that house. They lived on that land when it was farmland, and these spirits just are on the property. But there's a demon hiding behind the ghosts, and I can't see who the demon is. And if we had more time with that and more time to explain the ghosts, kind of like how in that first Conjuring film, there was the woman who hung herself and then kept coming back to kill the children who lived on that property. If we had more time with these ghosts and then the demon, it would matter more. As it is, the 3 ghosts that appear feel very poorly inserted and very quickly explained away.
The point is, the thing that tried to kill Judy is going to try and finish the job. And she knows that. She even will whisper to Tony, "Don't tell Mom, but I know that something wants me here. I know that I'm been baited into coming to this house." And sure enough, she's the one that's going to find the mirror up in the attic. Annabelle's going to be up there too, pushing her down the stairs. It's not going to be long before she's the possessed one. We were wondering, it always happens in these Conjuring movies, who's the one that's going to get the funky eyes and speaking in gibberish and attacking people. Did you know it was going to be Judy?
I didn't. I thought it was going to be that middle daughter that we spent all our time focusing on. I did not think Judy would be the possessed one.
Yeah, but we needed something for Judy to do other than get married.
I thought she'd take over for Ed, with Lorraine being the partner in the exorcism, which this does happen, but it's what I predicted. Ed would be clutching his chest and falling and probably trying to take some pills. I even predicted the pills, and because it's such a trope. I mean, we've seen this in so many films. We just saw this goddamn thing in that Rose Red with the guy with the heart and the pills. And so it was on my mind. And so I thought that it would be mother-daughter while Ed is gasping in a corner.
I think it's supposed to be a surprise that it's Judy. And yet, here's the problem. We didn't know Heather. You're saying it could have been the second oldest child, but did we know her name? She had a few moments, but we have not spent time with the families like we did in Conjuring 1 and 2. Or even 3, for that matter, which is, he was mostly in a jail cell for that. But still, I feel like the new characters got more of their story into the movie than the Smurls have been able to get. And part of that is they didn't want to go to sexual violence. And part of that is, look, we have got to make room to set up Judy as the next generation and to say goodbye to our stars. And consequently, it means that only Judy could be meaningful. If they did make it Heather or Dawn or even the dog, who would care, right? The only thing that matters is Judy. That's the way I've been feeling this whole time. So it makes sense that it's Judy, Judy, Judy here at the climax.
The one thing I absolutely hated in this movie, though, I mean, I don't hate this movie. I found it a little tedious, but the one thing that if I could cut, I would, is giant CGI Annabelle when Judy is wandering through the Smurl house and sees Annabelle, and then Annabelle grows to be like 50 feet tall and is chasing Judy. That is not scary. That is comedic.
Always a problem in all Conjuring climaxes is how big they try to go. And I think the second movie is the most offensive in my mind, of just being like, okay, this is so goddamn ridiculous. It's a little bit dialed back. I will just say, for the most part, this climax is about two men trying to carry a mirror downstairs and falling through drywall.
Have you ever moved? That is scary.
I know, he's got a heart condition too. I'm like, where's the young guy? Why didn't you wait for Tony to do this?
Oh, Tony was up there. I was pissed at Tony because two old men are moving a mirror and Tony says, I'm going to go get the car.
Yes!
Tony knew what he was doing, though. I mean, come on.
He liked the car, and he'll get the car in the end of this. But it's a climax about trying to get this cursed item out of this house and into their museum.
And I just want to draw an underline. This mirror, which we saw put on the curb, and we saw garbage men put in the back of a truck, and we saw a close-up of the truck trash compactor breaking this mirror. The mirror is back. It's still cracked, but not destroyed, and it snuck into the attic on its own. And based upon what we see, I think it walked there, because it can move.
True that. But again, that's par for the course. It tells you that this is demons, right? Only demons could make that happen. There's no other explanation. Lots of things are happening in this climax. I think Lorraine is in the basement with the axe murderer. I'm not even sure how that winds up. Do you guys even remember?
Yeah, she is being chased by Marilyn Manson, who has a lantern, and the entire basement fills with blood. Earlier, we saw the Warren sink filled with blood. Lorraine had a vision, and she dropped that locket with a picture of her daughter in it. And Tony has been trying to get back in the house. He went to get the car. The front door is locked. And after he breaks the window and still can't unlock the door, he says, I'm going to go around back. And he opens the cellar door and saves Lorraine from drowning in this pool of blood.
Ah, that's right. Yes. We got to set up Tony. Tony is heroic in here. And so when he gets up there and everyone's trying to save Judy from the noose, you know, he can be a participant in her rescue.
Yes, because Ed starts having heart problems and the Smurl father falls through the drywall and the mirror, I thought it landed on him, but I think it landed next to him. But Ed can't hold the mirror on his own down a flight of stairs from the attic. And so the mirror has crashed there. Judy is possessed. She telekinetically threw a dog into a wall. And that kind of made me think they were going to kill another dog like they did in the first one. But we see a shot later on. The dog is fine. It just didn't like getting thrown into the wall.
Documented in the true story, by the way, the dog was attacked.
Not sexually, I hope.
Not that they described.
I just want to point out that me and the woman, like 1 seat away from me, both gasped out loud when that dog was thrown against the wall. I don't know if you heard it, Arnie.
I heard you.
Okay, well, she did it also.
You weren't the only one. My theater, while the crowd wasn't enormous, they were reactive. I definitely feel like throughout this movie, I was hearing people respond with gasps and uh-oh and having a good time with it.
I kind of feel because we saw it at Alamo, which discourages that you'll get kicked out for a lot of stuff, that in horror movies, we kind of miss a lot of the interactions if we don't go see them at like AMC or something like that.
But we also miss a lot of the cell phone screens. So it's a worthwhile trade-off.
That's true. And crying babies.
So then the mirror starts to move on its own, spinning like a whirlwind and then spinning like a top. And this is funny. This is comedic that the mirror is now self-animating, that the demon can make the mirror move on its own. And it's going to, I couldn't even tell because of the cinematography, it's going to pin Tony down and like scrape his leg or something.
Yeah, he's being dragged or something. We got to feel for Tony. It's for the family to now save Tony because he's one of them. We've had him be heroic enough that now we need to make it about the three, right? Where it all started. That they're going to finally allow Judy to use her power. Don't run from it. Don't shut it out. Please don't say that Lucy Lockett song one more time. We can't stand it. Just be psychic and help us push this mirror into it shatters.
And it should be pointed out, they replay Judy's birth here. And I think when I get this on video, or I'm not getting this on video, but I think when this comes to video, if you time it, I wonder if the editing is exactly timed with the birth, where Judy is going to be hung and her dad is there and mom is screaming. And this time Tony's trying to grab the feet while dad is cutting the rope the same way the doctor cut the umbilical cord. And then Judy's not going to be breathing, just like her birth, and Lorraine's going to say, please God, and Ed's going to be doing CPR, and this is where his heart gives out, and then Tony has to take over. Very symbolic. The father must step down, and the husband must step up, and Judy will come back to life, just like she did during her birth. They're going to replay all of that, and that basically is what breaks the possession. At that point, she's now able to help her parents again.
Yeah, and the fact that, again, the messaging is, don't run from your power. I accept that you're going to have my life, that you're going to also commune with ghosts and do this thing. I mean, you probably should have done that before she ended up in the news, but, whatever. Yeah, the point is the family is united together in this, and they shove against it, pushing their evil reflections into, I don't know what happens. It just blows up or something, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of wind and a lot of shouting. The Bible catches fire while Ed is reading from it. We see evil Ed, evil Lorraine, and evil Judy. Were the evil Ed and Lorraine the actors who played them young? Was that young Ed and young Lorraine evil? I kind of thought it was.
Maybe. I mean, you don't think they would have Vera get in the makeup chair and...
No, I think they might. I couldn't tell. The camera's like swooping all around. We only get quick shots of these pale-faced black lipstick evil versions. But the more the Warrens as a family push against the mirror while the Smurls are all just standing outside, the mirror cracks from top to bottom. All the windows in the house explode out and the demon is vanquished.
Yeah, interesting juxtaposition with the documented story in the nonfiction book. The book ends with them still experiencing possession and demons. They didn't solve it. The Warrens couldn't fix it. They're just like, oh, well, we tried, but they're still having problems. And as of the publication in 1988, they were still being besieged. They had moved to another neighborhood, but still had problems. I don't know if it ever went away for the Smurls.
That sucks.
And it would also make the Warrens suck. So we're not going to have that ending. The Warrens need to save the day. And so they do. They take this mirror back home, even though Demon's probably not in it anymore. But it's another thing they can stick in the museum.
Yeah, nobody's coming to their talks anymore, so you gotta give museum tours. And you have to have new stuff, otherwise you're not gonna get repeat customers. So yes, they have a broken mirror kept under a tarp, and Ed is gonna toss the keys to the museum to Tony, passing the baton and accepting him into the family fully, as we cut to the scene we knew this movie would end on, the wedding.
Well, not if you thought Ed would be dead, right? That would be really weird. But that's why they keep him alive, Arnie, right? Not just because the real Ed lived for decades longer, but because you want to have sentimentality. You want to have father walk daughter down the aisle and past all of the previous families. They all came to celebrate the Warrens. There's Lily Taylor, the British mother and daughter. I guess the little kid that looked like Jonathan Lipnicki grew up and grew a beard.
Is that who that was? I did not know that. I guess also the real Tony and the real Judy, they were in this movie either at the wedding or at the birthday party. I'm not sure which. I think James Wan gave himself a cameo in here.
Oh, I saw him for sure, yes.
And I really want to know, though, did this London family come into money? Because a trip from London in the 80s was not cheap. When we saw them, they couldn't even afford biscuits. So how did they afford airfare to this wedding?
And honestly, at that point, it just sounds like a gift grab.
Because they had made a lot of money scamming people into thinking their house had been possessed in Enfield. That's how.
But I guess Tony has no friends ever since quitting the police force because that gun was put in his face and...
Yeah, the groom side is really light, isn't it?
Ed not only walks the bride down the aisle, but stands in the best man's position.
I think that signifies that they accepted Tony and they're going to support this, where he was so standoffish at the beginning.
Yeah, but Tony has no one. That's also kind of funny. Like, I exist to be a part of your family and I'm bringing nothing along for the ride.
And we have the reception. Everybody's dancing to some Van Morrison music. Do like the soundtrack of this movie, although part 3 also ended with Van Morrison, so I think this director really has a thing for Van. But Lorraine is going to say she had a vision, and it's their future life with grandchildren and motorcycle rides and writing their book, but it wasn't very good. I'm glad she said it, not me.
That made me laugh. Props to them. Good that you could recognize it. Didn't stop you from publishing it, but good for you to call it out. Yeah, here's the thing. This is not the ending you would have if you were going to make more with these people. They are telling you, here's the rest of our story all the way to our deaths, and you're not going to get any more movies. Not with us. And that feels weird, right? This really does feel like you can lean into the sentimentality and the emotionalism of this moment and not just feel like, oh, it's just the button for this film. They are bringing Conjuring to a close as we've known it. And if it's coming back, it'll be in different hands and different characters putting different things into the museum.
I was torn. I was actually sad to see these characters of Ed and Lorraine sign off, but glad they got a happy ending together. And yeah, they got to travel and lecture still and follow their dreams even without confronting more demons face to face. They've been around for so long, probably half the life of their target audience, you know, get them while they're 12 like they did me with Nightmare on Elm Street, and they're 25 now. So it was melancholy for me.
It's proof that if you hang around long enough, you get respectability. And that's what's happened. For some reason, we're sad to see this couple, these con artists, these scammers that have made a lot of bad films, say goodbye to us. The ending works. I agree. It's surprisingly heartfelt.
But there is an end credits scene. You know, they always do this with the Conjuring films. I probably wouldn't have remembered if I hadn't rewatched them. But over the credits, they show the real stuff and provide real audio tapes and the footage of the real Smurls and the Smurls on all the different TV shows. And
I found that part really interesting to see the real stuff a little bit because it kind of adds a perspective to it. And it is nice to kind of see what the real people looked like and how they acted.
Yeah, absolutely. Legitimizes what we just saw as being a real story, which always irritates me. But yeah, I agree. It's a fun part of the conclusion, but they don't end on a tease. I mean, they could have very much just shown us the mirror and had something jump out, break the glass, and we would know that Mirror Face would be back in a spinoff, maybe battling Annabelle and other things in this room, but no.
See, I was thinking, show us Annabelle in the mirror, reflected in the mirror.
The ending very much just feels like part of the goodbye, and they're not teasing. They're doing a very good job of making everyone believe this is it. We're not kidding.
After the credits is just another slide like we saw before the credits. You didn't have to make me sit through the credits just to tell me that the mirror is now referred to as a conjuring mirror and is in the occult museum. I guess it's nice that something is conjured after 4 films called The Conjuring. Nothing had ever been conjured before. The Conjuring mirror pays off for that title, but I didn't need to sit through the credits for that.
Yeah, but again, that's what I mean. It's not a cheesy stinger where they go, oh, but it's not done yet. It's going to get you. No. I guess the worst that could happen was Ed and Lorraine could come back and talk to Judy and Tony through the mirror if they wanted to pull that device. Give them some pointers as they go about their ways of making sequels, probably on the small screen.
Oh God, I'm now just envisioning a sequel where Judy and Tony sell everything to Matt Rife, and Matt Rife playing himself goes ghost hunting.
Oh, that's bad.
It would be awful, but Matt Rife would do it. The guy's a whore. So, Stuart, Marjorie, do you recommend The Conjuring, Last Rites? Marjorie.
You know, it's always hard to do recommends when you're talking about something that is multi-part. And I think you guys can kind of agree with that because this is the last one. Does it wrap anything up? Meh. It's a lot of family stuff, which I enjoyed the characterization with the actor and actress because they had a lot of chemistry. I think Vera Farmiga is a very good actress, and she has a very calm demeanor that she has with this. She's very empathetic and sympathetic, and like a great kind of medium for what she's doing in this movie. That being said, I found this movie incredibly boring, and I don't think we got enough haunting stuff. We didn't get enough of the smurls, and I understand why now after Stuart saying he read the book and it was a lot of ghost rapey scenes, and I get that that would probably not make good cinema that you could not laugh at, because ghosts sexually abusing people kind of sound ridiculous because it's not really a being, but that's neither here nor there. I'm only going to recommend this movie because it is the end of the series. It's the end of Ed and Lorraine as we know them in the movie, unless the amount of dollars that this is making propels somehow yet another one. It seems like they would maybe do an insert and like do a 2.5 or something instead of like continuing on. So I'm going to recommend it so you can be a completist, but I don't think you need to see it in theaters. I think that you can wait till it streams on something because it wasn't that exciting. It wasn't that great. I'm actually going to go read the book now and see if that's I know it's going to be different. I'm going to see if that's more interesting. And I think I'm going to do some research now because I've never really been interested in these kinds of demons or anything like that. And I'm going to maybe do a little research because now I'm kind of interested in the different kinds of demons.
Marjorie, it's funny you say about them doing like 2.5. This is a James Wan universe. He did make, 4 more films with Jigsaw after Jigsaw died, and all of those, you think it's taking place after, but it's taking place during kind of movies. Yeah, don't tempt him. Don't give him ideas.
I'm looking forward to The Conjuring Part 3 and 7/8.
Stuart.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I feel weird giving this one a pass, but I feel like Conjuring Last Rites is a good movie for people that have been following the Conjuring movie. It ends the way that this series could and should end. It's not the Ed and Lorraine Warren movie I would want, or the one that would feel real to me, but it is a nice goodbye to 2 good performances, and a reminder that Conjuring movies always had things in them that worked. I do think that early on, the movie's successful at cutting between the Warrens trying to live in retirement and the Smurl family dealing with ghosts blowing out their candles, knocking down their lights, ripping away their corded phones, and reminding you what life in 1986 looked like for suburban families. The movie only really becomes trying in the climax, which is always where I ding every Conjuring movie. It just becomes so absurd because they want to give us something bigger than the story can support. But I think that what has held this series together is Ed and Lorraine, Vera and Patrick. I think that, this movie, surprisingly, works in that way, as a drama, as a sentimental goodbye to 2 characters as they set aside and move away and let new generations carry on the franchise and their work. And so I don't think anything has really changed. It's about as good as the first film, but more dramatic, sentimental than scary. So if that doesn't sound like a movie you'd want, and I can imagine that some people will be disappointed that wanted more clapping games, I think it is, again, the ending that is right for this universe.
The Conjuring universe hasn't been kind to me, nor I to it. But after 11 years of living with this franchise, and I know the first one came out 12 years ago, but I saw it and we reviewed it in 2014, so 11 years, I have just softened to it overall. I've come to meet it where it is. The first couple of movies were just mild not recommends for me, and rewatching them, I wonder if maybe I should have been more generous. The heart of the films are Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, and I just like watching them as this kind couple. They're kind of like Ma and Pa Kent. They're so wholesome. And right now, in a world that I feel is very bitter and very cynical, it's kind of refreshing. I could use more of these Warrens in my life. And in this film, I just enjoyed spending time with them again. I liked the birthday party scene. I liked the interplay between Ed and Tony as Ed comes to accept Tony as part of the family. I've watched these characters for so long, I was just going with this my big fat psychic wedding film. So here I am, wanting to recommend this movie, wanting to maybe reward a series for having two main characters I like throughout the entire series, and like you guys did, let them go out on a high note. And I want to underline, I like Vera and Patrick. I still think the real Ed and Lorraine are pieces of shit from everything I've learned about them. Scam artists through and through, but I like this sweet, fictionalized, virtuous vision of the Warrens.
I think we're all on the same page with that.
But this movie won't let me give it a recommend. The stuff in Pennsylvania is so poorly integrated with the Warren wedding stuff that I felt like, remember when we had cable and there was a flip button on your remote that would take you to the previous station? So if you didn't get to the station by just clicking channel up 32 times, you actually typed in the number. You could flip between two stations. And like if you were watching two basketball games, when one hit a commercial, you hit the flip button and you're right back at the second game. That's how I felt watching this movie. I was hitting that flip button and sometimes watching a rom-com, Father of the Poltergeist Bride, and then flipping back to paranormal hood with 3 generations of a family being stalked by a demon. And like all of the Conjuring films, this one is paced really poorly. It takes forever for the Warrens to get to Pennsylvania, and it seems like we spent so much more time with the wedding story than the haunted house. When the daughter is screaming at the father, how much longer can we live here? I was wondering how much longer before the Warrens get there. And yeah, what went wrong? A doll stood up and a phone was pulled into a closet. The Smurls, I don't want them to add ghost rape. I really don't. But I want something to make me feel like they are really under pressure and being oppressed during the oppression stage of this demonic invasion. And we don't even get to see Grandma get pushed down the stairs. You know, that could have been a scary scene. The worst we see is the oldest daughter puking glass and blood, which is scary, but the rest has been pretty mild that we get to see. So it didn't feel like move out of our house level of bad. And when the obvious happens, the Warrens are, of course, going to help these people. Otherwise, it's not a movie. I'm left with more questions than answers. Like, how did the demon leave the house to kill Father Gregory, but can't just go see Judy? It has to call Judy to it. How did the demon leave the house to kill Father Gordon, but can't just go to see Judy where Judy is? It has to call Judy to it. Why is this demon so specifically focused on Judy anyway? You know, it seemed happy just oppressing anybody who came around. If the mirror can magically appear at an attic, why not just magically appear where Judy is and go after Judy if that's what you want? And I'm sad because I liked so much of this film, and I liked the ending where Vera predicted the family's happy future. I'm glad those fictional characters get to ride off into a happy sunset. But while I enjoy the actors, I can't say, even rewatching, that I enjoyed any of these movies. So 4 out of 4, it's weird because I'm like sentimental towards them, but 4 out of 4 not recommends.
I get it. It's not a great movie, and my endorsement is very mild. It is meeting the movie where it's at. It is recognizing that The Conjuring is only going to be a certain way. Slow, with jump scares. The formula is baked into the cake. I guess what I'm complimenting is it got to me emotionally. And it has a lot to do with the fact that we say goodbye to the best things in the Conjuring universe. And that means something. Poor Tony and Judy are going to really have a hard time making a part 5, if that's what it's going to be.
I guess I do want to say, yeah, 3 out of the 4 films have been really weak not recommends, like kind of borderline films. It's only part 3 I really didn't like, and I wish I did because it has Arnie in it.
I have to say, though, The Conjuring did something positive. When we started out watching these, I kept calling Patrick Wilson fake Will Arnett, and now he's actually surpassed Will Arnett for me, and I think he was not good in Aquaman. That was just, no. But I think that Patrick Wilson does have some talent, and this is a nice, comfortable paycheck for him, but I think that it's opened doors for him. I don't think he's a bad actor at all, like I started out. And I apologize to you, Patrick Wilson. I misjudged you at the beginning, and now I'd watch other movies with you.
Yeah, Insidious 6.
Only if he gets to sing again. Maybe if they offer him the ability to do more 90s rock, he'll come back to Conjuring, too. But yeah. And you listen to Smartless, and you like Arrested Development, so this is actually a big compliment to Patrick Wilson. So maybe this is goodbye to a franchise that I haven't liked very much of and really didn't like the spin-offs of. I'm not sad if this is the end of the franchise, because the only series that I've looked forward to new installments of less than The Conjuring, and a lot of it is because we aren't on the same page as our listeners sometimes. You guys recommended this, so maybe you are. Or maybe this is going to be the reversal and the listeners will hate this one and you liked it. But the only other franchise that I've really dreaded returning to as much as Conjuring is Avatar, because, again, a franchise that people love, and especially that sequel, we didn't.
Yeah, I like the first Avatar, but I know what you mean. When you're trapped in a series where all you're going to do is reinforce an opinion that is unpopular, yeah, it gives you nowhere to go but hate, right? Hate mail. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what fans make of this. I think it'll be a mixed bag. I think in some ways this is the least scary Conjuring, and people probably are pissed about that. But I also think that it's the sweetest, which is, again, why I'm endorsing it.
And next week, we are going back to theaters again. I wasn't chomping at the bit for another Conjuring. I am chomping at the bit for another Stephen King. The new trailers are making this look even better, even if I find the treadmill social media stuff a little bit off-putting. But The Long Walk, a Richard Bachman novel that Stephen King wrote, one of his first ever novels that got published later on under his pseudonym, is getting a big screen adaptation coming out this Thursday.
From the director of Hunger Games, can he do it again a decade later? Take the really originator of this idea of kids killing each other for entertainment and make something new in 2025? I don't know. It has a different flavor. There's definitely sort of a backwoods southern vibe that feels a little bit like Sinners. We'll see how it goes. I can't say I'm chomping at the bit, Arnie. With Stephen King, I never am. But this one could be one of the good ones.
I still say Stephen King's having a hell of a year. The Monkey is one of my favorite of the year. We will eventually get to The Life of Chuck, but positive thoughts from me. And now we have The Long Walk and The Running Man, both of which look so damn good. So I think this is King's year in film.
In the meantime, if you're wanting something really good, we're finally getting the Troma-approved sequel. Troma Pictures admitted Toxic Avenger 2 and 3 were things that they have regret about. But Part 4, Citizen Toxie, they claim is the real sequel. And we'll see what we really think of it this Friday for Platinum level donors.
Director Lloyd Kaufman says it's the best Toxic Avenger film, although he said that before the reboot, so we'll see if that's the case. But yes, we have 2 more toxic movies to cover. Citizen Toxie, Citizen Kane, considered one of the best films of all time. Citizen Toxie, considered one of the best Troma films of all time. So we will be covering that this Friday. You can find out all the details at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. And I just want to thank everyone who has donated to the show, who supports us through Patreon or through Podbean or Apple or direct donation. You guys keep the lights on for us. We couldn't do it without you. We enjoy being an ad-free show. And we're doing 5 podcasts at the Platinum level this time around. Usually we do 3 at the Platinum level, plus all of the Wizard of Oz shows coming up, and all of the I Know What You Did Last Summer shows we've already done. And as I say, if you're paying for a subscription to Spotify to listen to music, or if you're like me and you still buy digital music and download it so that they can't take it away from you, then you're paying $10 a month or a couple bucks a song just for 3 minutes of entertainment. Each of our Toxic Avenger shows goes over an hour. So when you look at all the Oz shows, all the I Know What You Did Last Summer shows, including the mini-series, it's many hours of listening. And $10 gets the I Know What You Did Last Summer series, 5 shows. $25 then adds all the Wizard of Oz shows to that, and then $35 or more direct to us adds all the Toxic Avenger shows. We hope that you get entertainment and enjoyment out of listening to those shows. I think we offer a good value compared to the price of video games and the price of digital songs these days. So if you do help us out, if you do donate, you're supporting an indie podcast that is ad-free and hopefully really enjoying the content we offer specifically for our supporters. So thank you very much for your support. Marjorie, Stewart, thanks for conjuring up another podcast with me. And until next time, it's over. Maybe for real this time.
You survived. You don't come out the other side of something like this weaker. What is there left to be scared of?
I was there. Whatever happened that day, that was not Arnie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Pretty far out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's groovy.
You can hear more movie reviews at our website, nowplayingpodcast.com. In our archive section, you can find reviews of the Insidious films, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Saw, and hundreds more.
Look what she made me do.
You can also follow Now Playing on Facebook and Twitter, where the hosts post new episode announcements and written movie reviews. The links to our social media pages can be found at nowplayingpodcast.com.
Sometimes when you get haunted, it's like stepping on gum. You take it with you.
Support from listeners like you help keep Now Playing operating. You can find a link to donate using PayPal at our website, nowplayingpodcast.com.
Yo, Arnie! You want to make a quick $5?
I like your dolls.
Now Playing is edited by Arnie.
Arnie needs to be put on a 24-hour suicide watch.
Now Playing credit narration by Brock.
It's here with you. And it's telling you to do things. Arnie, what is it telling you to do?
Now Playing is not affiliated with New Line Cinema, the Safran Company, Evergreen Media Group, or Warner Brothers Pictures. The Conjuring films are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
Nobody's disputing any of that. Arnie knows that he's going to prison.
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media
The
Incorporated.
devil is the father of lies. Demons are his manipulators.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2025. All rights reserved, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
We have to get out of here.
You did good.
No, you did.